Thanks everyone for being here today. It's a rather nice day. Thanks for staying indoors and being with us. This is a talk that I did, I think in 2010 or 11, the last time. So it's been almost 10 years, or a little bit more than 10 years. I had a busy week, so I was only able to take a look at the presentation yesterday. And to my surprise, I felt really good. I always improve my presentations, of course. I feel that they need improvement. It's not that I always make the most perfect presentations, and your opinions change. You get new ideas. You sometimes find mistakes, inevitable, and you improve. But on this one, I did only minor work. I think I did a very thorough research when I prepared this about 10 years ago. Long story short, I'm happy with the presentation. I hope you will find it interesting too. So I called it the Olympics, Games, and Sportspersons on ancient coins because Olympics and Games, they were different events. The Olympics were specific to a certain festival, and you had games, different games in different parts of the ancient world. And of course, we have the protagonists, sports persons, not necessarily always competitors or contestants, but there are people who are involved in the game. So and they are represented on coins. So we're going to talk about all of those. Okay, so how did this notion of sports begin? We don't know, but every indication that we see from the earliest depictions of human activity, we see movement, and these movements are at the beginning mostly related to hunting. People had to work hard. It was hard physical work to hunt because not always you have easy prey to kill, but you had sometimes difficult ones. You had the fast ones, you had the larger ones, you had the wild ones. So there is human activity from the earliest times that we can see on ancient art. See, I have here a cave or a house, Nagaran painting from Çatalhöyük, 7000 BC. And here is another one from Lascaux, Upper Paleolithic period, 16,000 years almost. So there is human activity from very early on. And they continue, of course. We run, we climb, we swim, we jump to save our lives even today. So it's not something new. But how did this turn into a social activity, social, religious, political activity? When we come to closer times, when I say closer, 1650 BC, for instance, in Çorum, in northeast or central east Anatolia, you have this Hussein Dede was. With so many other depictions, we see the bull leaping person. depicted on this was. And similar activity was popular in Knossos, in Crete, during the Minoan period. They're rather, several hundred years apart, but they are contemporary. And you see the same activity in Mesopotamia, in Egypt, in all the ancient world. I'm sure if you go and try to research in Far East India and either further in China, I'm sure you will find similar activities. So what is this bull leaping about? It was such a significant activity. It's not hunting. It's not something that they have to do, but they decided to do. So it must have had certain religious aspect of it, and people adopted this sportive activity in so many different cultures for centuries. We're not going to go into that detail. It can be a different presentation. So hunting, we understand. You have to survive. You have to eat to survive. You have to find food to survive. And there are the times that you hunt. But going to Egypt, we have this wall painting, a fresco from the 11th dynasty, 21st century BC, at Beni Hassan in Egypt. You have all the movements of wrestlers. So organized social events, the history of organized social events go several millennia before our time. So it's not something new. It's not about hunting anymore. It's not about survival anymore, but it is a social event. What is behind all these events, we can only guess, but we really don't have anything written explaining to us what was behind that. But when you look at the activities, you see that they are very well defined. So they must have organized these events based on certain rules. And how many years must have passed for them to set the rules and create these events, and how significant were they at the time that they were held, and they thought that they had to put it, they had to record it. And then, in Egypt, again, you see bowl games, very interesting ones. Two youth, maybe, younger boys, simply riding some elderly man and playing some kind of a bowl game. Again, we don't have much information about this event, but it must have been something significant to the Egyptian society at that time, and it was put on pictures. And wars, of course, wars. Paul was just mentioning the chariots, war chariots, and here is one from the Hittite period, 14th, 13th century BC. You have a one-horse chariot, you have a rider, a driver, and then you have someone using his bow to shoot, and the shot enemy is under the horse. And then you have here another warrior, maybe, on a galloping horse. So war activities also became part of this physical showcasing idea. Not always entertainment, but war activities also included in the sporting activity. And here it's obvious that it's a festival. You have ladder climbing person. You have someone who is swallowing a sword, and another person is supporting the other person. So these events became the social a part of the social structure at that time, and they had certain significance to the people where those games were held. When we come to the more literate time periods, we get to know the names of some of these games. And it's thanks to the Greek language that flourished as early as the 8th century BC, and it became the lingua franca, and luckily the people took the time to put certain things in writing, and luckily many of the things that they wrote survived. So we know about certain games by name. So the Olympic Games, the Pythian Games, the Isthmian Games, the Nemean Games, the Actian Games, the Heraia at Argos, the funeral games of Patroclus, Panathenaic Games, Ptolemaic Games, is Olympic and Isophythian Games and Capitolian Games, and many, many more that we don't have room to mention here. So from 776 BC, they say, until AD 393, this ancient city-states held competitions in running, fighting, and horse riding in honor of various deities. And in certain area, they became the model for the modern Olympics. But similar sport activities took place in different parts of the world. So not only the games held at Olympia near Elis in Greece became the base of the Olympics. It's just, the modern times we picked up the name from those games, but otherwise these games were held in many different places of the ancient world. What were the stimulants for organizational sports activities at that time? Well, we have to consider the personal interest. People who had the athletic skills, they wanted to gain recognition. And maybe not only recognition, but it was a way of making money for them. So it was important for their livelihood. It was a social event for sure, because it brought people together. And a social event bringing people together will bring some economic benefits. And of course, certain people will take advantage of this social and economic event, and the religion takes its role there. And finally, the political power, which will preside over the whole social activity, and they will also take credit for the event. So it was not just entertainment. It involved a lot of other things, maybe not openly, clearly publicized, but a lot of people had their interests. So I'm not going to talk too much about this Olympia at Elis. I created this for to put the presentation online so that people who have a chance to go online and see the presentation can have this information. But this whole thing about Olympic Games at Elis is very intriguing. We have very detailed information about the Olympic activities in this place. And as you will see later on, games, sports activities are widely advertised on ancient coins. Yet, as famous as it is, the Olympic games at Alice, you don't see much. So you have the field. You have everything still surviving today, but when it comes to seeing them on coins, you get a huge disappointment. Anyways, in the beginning, the games were held only one day, and there was only one event, running one stadium that was 600 feet, so roughly 182 meters. But gradually, they added other games. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there were not games before the games that were held at Olympia in Elis. It's just that we have a historical record about this event, and that's why people have this incorrect notion that Olympics or the sports activities started at this time, which is not true. And now about the coins. If you go to the coins of Alice, you see nothing related to Olympics or Olympic Games. It's all religious. It's just promoting the Zeus belief and the temple at Alice. So when do we start seeing coins? As of 471 BC. And how do we know these coins represent a certain Olympic Games? It's actually a very blurry idea, I should say. People simply say, for instance, this coin, Olympia 78th, 80th Olympiads, is just a guess. They don't know exactly when this coin was struck. As you can see, the time period given is very broad. It's about 8 years here. I suspect that people simply want to sell coins, and that's why they make these. They give these estimated dates, but we have no reason to believe that these coins were actually struck for the Olympic Games. The same is true for this one. Again, there's nothing about the Olympics yet. When you read the descriptions, they're all being connected to certain Olympic activities. So this one, for instance, says 108th Olympia. How do you know it is related to the 108th Olympia? Well, you put a date here, 348. Long story short, the Olympics or the Olympic Games held at Olympia in Elis is a huge exaggeration, to say the least. The only good example that we see about these games comes from the time of Hadrian. On this one, we have something written, Eleon, so the name of the city, and the figures around the inscription simply refer to the sport activities at that time. So in general, we have nothing on coins to support the idea about Olympics in Ellis. However, we have coins that give us a lot of information about the nature of the games and how they were held and who were involved. So this is a very interesting coin from Salonika in Macedon, struck during the time of Mark Antony and Octavian, 37 BC. On the obverse is a female head, and if it were not the legend here, we would have not known who this head represented. It says Agonothesia. So Agonothesia is literally the presidency of the festival, Agon. And Agonothetis is the person in charge of the festival. So it's like the Olympic Committee president on the coin. It's very nicely created and named on the coin so that we know what they are referring to. Oh, on the reverse, of course, you have Antonius Caesar. So it's promoting Mark Antony in that area. What do we have in these games? We have Halonodikai, Halonodikas. That's the singular, Halonodikai, plural, judges. And then we have umpire, or umpire. We have referees. So what is the difference between a judge and a referee? A judge decides if it is a win or a lose, but an umpire or umpire simply manages the competition. What do? How do we know they are the referees? They carry a whip or a stick in their hand. In case the competitors do something unruly, they intervene using the whip or the stick. Just like here, for instance, this competitor is trying to gouge the eyes of the other competitor, and the umpire is getting ready to strike the competitor for his action. And if a competitor decides to submit and quit, he could signal this by pointing up their index finger. As you see here, the competitor is raising his hand and pointing up his index finger. So the rules were set, and detailed rules were set, as you see, from very, very early on. And of course, everything would start with certain activities. So when it became a 5-day program in 468 BC, they would first take the Olympic oath, and then the Halonodikai and the umpire appear in front of the Zeus statue and the council house, and they all attend an opening ceremony, if you will. And after the opening ceremony, of course, they take and they draw lots from an amphora to determine who is going to compete in what game and how they're going to pair in their sport activities. So this is a coin from Philippopolis in Thrace, struck for Lagabolus. We have three naked athletes. The one in the middle is drawing lot from the amphora, and he's looking back. And on the right, we have an athlete who previously drew his lot, and he is raising his hand and looking at his lot. And on the right, on the left-hand side, we have another one, must have done his business earlier. And they're all looking at the athlete on the right-hand side, and they're trying to see what he got. So a very lively scene of athletes getting ready to compete. And here's another one, a similar scene from Pisidia, Crostana. And we have the same thing happening. In this case, the athletes are not interested in other parties. They're just doing their parts. But the extra thing is that we have an agonistic urn, a cup, a prize cup on the top. But that means these rules were unanimously accepted and exercised in different places. You see, this is in Pisidia, southwestern Anatolia, and this is in Thrace, Philippopolis. And we have the same activity, again from Thrace, Byzantine, but a very different depiction. Interestingly, the one who drew his lot is running, and the other ones are following them. And then there's this this guy on the left-hand side on his toe tips. It's beyond us. We don't know exactly what they represent. However, it's obvious that these are competitors, and they are drawing lots, and they're getting ready to compete. From ancient resources, we know that they had 5 events. First, 600 foot race, and then broad jump with weights, and then the javelin, and then the discus throwing, and wrestling. Sometimes they did these separately, and then sometimes it was a part of a pentathlon. So, you know, each athlete would do all of these events all together to win a prize. The interesting part of the activity here was a horse race, a kind of horse race, which is not mentioned in the general list. However, it must have been an older sports activity in which the athlete raced on a horse first, horse riding competition, and in the last laps, the rider would dismount and run alongside the horse to finish the race. It is lost to us. We don't know much about this competition, but in ancient sources we read that it is called kalpe. And here is a coin from Ionia, from the city of Eritrea, near Smyrna, Western Anatolia. A youth holding the reins of a cantering horse here. So he jumped off the horse and running next to the horse in the last laps. most probably a famous athlete from this city won one of these races, and the city is bragging about the victory. Their city man won in this competition. The same event must have been held in different parts of the ancient world. So this one is from Ionia in Erythrea, and this is from Calendarus in Cilicia. And here we see the athlete is about to dismount his galloping horse. So the horse is still running, and you're supposed to jump off, dismount, and run alongside the horse. The 6-foot race was the most important event. I guess it was it is considered the first event in the Olympics, but in other cities it was part of the pentathlon, no matter what. And here is a coin from the Roman Republican period. We have an athlete running, holding a palm branch. Palm branch signifies victory. It's an attribute of Nike. And so sportive victory or a victory in a war would be represented by a palm branch. The athlete holds something else or some things else in his left hand. And numismatists and historians have been struggling to define what they might be. Some believe they were the gloves of a boxer. They don't really look like those. Some believe they were open reeds. It's not known, but what is known is the athlete here is running. This is the extra laps that he is running. Obviously, he won the competition, and Striegel is right there. And after he finishes his last lap, he's going to clean up his skin with the Striegel here. But it is obvious that this is a victorious athlete in a running competition, or is it? Now, when you look at the name Platorius Castianus, the same guy appears on the coinage of the famous Brutus denarius. So the same guy struck these coins different times, but he was a monier maybe twice. And here we have the same monier promoting the cows of Brutus, and then we have this one. So it's really perplexing. We don't know if this athlete represents a political figure or a sports person. Obviously, it refers to a sports activity, and it can be a political statement at the same time because of the monier's involvement in political side-taking, if we should put it in perspective. So the 600 foot race, it's about 180 plus meters. We said this is roughly 200 meters in the modern Olympics. And Usain Bolt holds the record from 2009. 19.19 seconds. It's amazing. I wonder how fast the ancient sprinters could run this distance at that time. Broad or long jump with weights was one of the events in these games, whether it is Olympics games later on, games held in other places. But these jumps were conducted while carrying halters in each hand. So they found examples of them at Olympia, and they were between 3.5 to 10 pounds. Not so light. Here is a coin from Bizya in Thrace, not too far from Istanbul, on the way to Hadrianopolis, Edirne modern times. You have, they identified as a pentathlon event, but we're not really sure about that. The contestant is standing to left and extending in an extending pose, but the idea is that he's dropping the distance marker before his jump, actually. So the people who would have held this coin in his hand knew what this was about, and it was nicely represented on this coin. And we have this Alexander the Great tetradrachm reverse here. On the reverse, I would have said that this side figure would represent a boxer. But actually, after examining it and also doing some research, I agree with the person who attributed it to an athlete jumping to left. It's a jumping stance that the athlete is depicted here. So whether it is the main topic or a side topic, we see athletes on many different occasions. The javelin throwing, well represented on many coins. Here, another coin from Philippopolis Thrace. It's from the time of Elagabalus, and another one here from Akragas. They are at least 400 or 500 years apart, and or 300 years apart. But this activity was well known as part of the games. The discus throwing, the most famous example is from, of course, the island of Kos, from very early 450 BC. We see this figure of a discus thrower. It's a little bit contradictory to how a discus thrower would use his body before throwing. However, we have to consider this as an artistic rendition of the use of space on the coin. So here we have a tripod, an attribute of Apollo, and the name of the city, the ethnicon, and the athlete. Even though this is not the exact way an athlete would bend his body to before throwing the discus, the artist here simply wanted to show some kind of a movement and also use the space in the most idealistic way to represent what he wanted to represent. And here is another coin, again from Philippopolis in Thrace, from the time of Caracalla. We see the discobolus, the discus thrower, the athlete. They say that he's all holding 3 balls in his hand. And unfortunately, we don't know what it represents. But in my view, it's the lot that he drew, and he's extending it to the referee before throwing the discus, in my view. Wrestling, as you will remember from earlier slides, was a well exercised sporting activity. From very, very early on, representations are seen in the Egyptian art, in Mesopotamian art, in Anatolian art, and they are best represented on the coinage of Aspendus in Pamphylia, southwestern Anatolia. Now, everyone will remember this this coin. If you're interested in ancient coins, they are very popular. They appear everywhere online. But unless you pay attention to detail, you don't really see how well this series of coins were designed. Look at this one. They're getting ready to engage. They grab the opponent by the wrist, and the feet start to engage, as well as the hands. And the activity becomes even more complicated. The one on the left is grabbing the knee of the opponent. The opponent is grabbing the belly of the athlete on the right-hand side. So there is strong engagement, and strong engagement continues on this one. And finally, you see even more engagement on this one. There can be others. I didn't really pay any more attention on this after finding these 6 examples, but I wouldn't be surprised if Aspendus had more engagement scenes, different engagement scenes on the coinage. So the significance is lost to us. We don't know why Aspendus decided to use these depictions on its coinage for quite a long time. These coins must have been struck for at least several decades, and for some reason, it became the badge of the city, the symbol of the city. And the artists, the nature of being an artist, you always try to do something different next time you're asked to do the same thing. So the artist had to be imaginative, had to be creative, and had to show a different stance of the athletes in this sporting event. We see athletes in different forms. So this is a gold coin from Syracuse, or Syracusa, about 5th century BC, maybe struck in 406 BC, they think. On the obverse is a shield ornamented with facing Gorgonian and the name of the city. And on the reverse, we have Ephebos. Who is Ephebos? Excuse me. It represents the adolescent age group of people, or a social status reserved for the age in the antiquity. So the youth of the city of Syracuse, in short, is represented in the form of a naked athlete standing holding a striggle, and he is trying to remove oil from his legs. It was an inspirational piece, most likely, and simply promoting the youth of the city, not just a specific group, but representing the energy of the city, if you will. So on the third day, they would hold rites for the hero Palps. It was a kind of procession by all the participants. You had the Hellenodocai and the ambassadors of different cities. They all go and sacrifice, they say 100 cows to Zeus, but of course, it's not always the case. It's just an exaggeration. But the story of Pelops and Hippodamia is very well known. Here is an art depiction from the Metropolitan Museum, I believe. The story is interesting. Of course, all these mythological stories are interesting in that they involve the most unexpected things, out of nature things. That's why they are mythological stories. So Pelops was the son of Tantalus, and Tantalus wanted to know if the gods were really smart enough to know everything, and he wanted to test them. So he simply sacrificed his son and threw a party and let the gods eat his meat. But the gods quickly discovered the trick, and they banished him. And then they resurrected Pelops. Unfortunately, Demeter, of course, you have to have something negative to happen to make it interesting. Demeter, who was deeply in grief after the abduction of her daughter, absent-mindedly ate the left shoulder of the young hero. And then it was replaced by an ivory shoulder when his body was reassembled. So the whole story is very interesting and appealing, and they had to put some political and religious aspect to the games, and they decided to use the story of Pelops. So the third day they do that. And then they continue the fourth day running and combat sports. So boxing became a part of the games in 688 BC, they say. We don't have any hard evidence about this, but it's by authors who wrote in the 2nd century AD. So we don't know how accurate those dates are. However, we see them on ancient coins. Again, a coin from Philippopolis, struck for Caracalla, we see a boxer in a boxing stance here. And we have other coins struck in the same city, and then another one coming from Corinth, in Corinthia. This time we have two boxers engaging in boxing activity. To me, even more interesting depiction on a coin is the hand of a boxer that we see on this coin of Smyrna in Ionia. Hand in castus, between palm branches. So palm branches, remember, we said represented victory, whether it is sportive or war. it is used for victory. So the first version of a battle castus was a series of leather tongues that were tied over the hand. Greeks used them in their hand-to-hand competitions where only knock-on mattered. So the fight doesn't end until one of the competitors is knocked out. Romans modified this and they added metal parts that included spikes, studs, and iron plates. So it's no more innocent sports activity, but it's vicious entertainment for the Roman elite. So the Latin word castus is derived from the verb cadere, meaning to strike. So it's unrelated to the similar noun castus, which refers to a kind of belt worn by women in ancient Greece. So these words are very similar, but they mean different things. Long story short, boxing was a very popular activity in different parts of the ancient world. In certain places, it was a very, very vicious event, and that would end in very dramatic results. Once all the games are completed, they would throw a banquet for the victors, mostly in the house of magistrates, they say, but it's mostly in the area where these games were held, usually behind temples where they had a field for these ancient games. And here is a coin from Tarsus in Cilicia or Cilicia for Caracalla, showing an athlete standing and holding a palm branch, an agonistic crown, a bow, literally depicting the victorious athlete. And here is another one from Augusta in Cilicia, again for Trajan Bacchus. A nude athlete is this time seated on a horizontal kippus, crowning himself. And on the right-hand side, you see an amphora, probably one of the prizes that would be given to an athlete. And more coins with victorious athletes. Here is one from Tarsus in Cilicia for Valerian Senior. We have three nude athletes, and they're crowning themselves with radiate crown, and they're all holding a palm branch. And another one from Coile, Syria, from the city of Heliopolis. So what are these actually? These are not, of course, these are civic coins. The cities show off the festivals and sports activities held in their city, but at the same time, they're political statements. But behind the scenes, we know what's going on, and especially in Cilicia and in Syria, many of these games were held during the time the Roman emperors visited the region with huge armies. These cities had to support those armies, and they had to spend a lot of money. So they had to be entertained at the same time, and the cities would advertise those sportive activities and festivals on their coinage. There are many coins that depict the awards given to the athletes during these events. they have this race table, and on the table is an agonistic urn, so the cup, if you will. And on the cup is written Pythia. So we know that this is a game dedicated to Pythia. And in the urn, you see two palm branches representing victory. And under the table, the prize table, we have the prizes, the awards. So a bronze vase, maybe, and then some small items. They want to call them bowls, but I believe they are money bags, because later on we will see money bags represented on other coins. So quite a detailed scene for the athletes to feel encouraged and stimulated to participate in these activities. Here we have a similar scene from Parentus in Thrace, again for Caracalla. This time we have two prize urns on the agonistic table and the similar representations under the table. So, of course, the biggest prize is, of course, winning the cup, right? And then, of course, even though they're smaller in terms of value, the items under the table were the main goal for many competitors to participate in these events. More events are seen in different parts of the Roman Empire, and this is the Cercamina Sacra Capitoria Ecumenical Isolestica Heliopolitana. So literally, the games held in Heliopolis in Coele, Syria. Promotion of the event held during the time of Gallienus. It is a very, very difficult time. So the father, Valerian Senior, is in the region getting ready to fight the Persians, and they have to entertain the army, and they organized games, and they offered multiple prizes in the games. Then we have the games held in Rome. They are very well represented on ancient coins. They come in the form of festivals. They're much better organized than those that we see in other places. Everything starts at the temple with a ceremony and sacrificing a ram, as you see here. And the names of the festivals were very well known. But even though they are called secular games, they were actually religious activities. It's just the Roman politics that they named them secular games. The most famous arena or sports field would be Circus Maximus. It was a huge architectural structure that held thousands of spectators, and the games would have continued days. sometimes more than 250,000 people would attend these games. And it was used for many centuries. In fact, until the time of Justinian, they continued games, and all of a sudden the interest shifted, and we see representations of the Circus Maximus on coins, spectacular representations on coins. We spoke about war activities as part of supportive activities, and they are also represented on ancient coins. Here we have two Roman Republican coins on the left. We have a battle scene, two gladiators fighting, and on the right-hand side we have again gladiators fighting wild animals. More fighting scenes from the provinces. This is from Synada in Phrygia for Gallienus. And we know that the chariot races were popular from very early on. This is a spectacular tetragrammaton from Syracuse. Unless you pay attention to detail, it's just a quadriga, four-horse chariot, and its driver. And you have a Nike bringing a wreath to the rider. However, when you look at here, you see a broken wheel under the feet, or under the feet of the horses. So it was a very fast pace event, and there were the times that many chariots would lose their wheels. And the artist here wanted to make sure that we see how fearful these races were, and everything is depicted in detail. There were games held in certain architectural locations where they would bring a ship to represent a naval battle. So here we see that scene struck on two different coins, with all the wild animals and the sea and the chariot races. Everything is depicted. So it must have been a huge event. And of course, the legend tells us everything. La titia temporum. So it's the happy time of these emperors. In 204, the Severans held secular games with lots of sacrifices and a lot of events, circus races and games, and they wanted to show off these events on their coinage. Now, it's rare, but we see sportspersons also mentioned on ancient coins. Here we see a name, Theocles, son of Pausanias. There is a contemporary inscription, and that's how we know about this athlete. So he was given the honorary magistracy by the town, and his name appeared on this coin. On the obverse is Hera driving quadriga, and on the reverse is the name of the athlete. These athletes continue to appear in later Roman coins called contarniate. Here we have a naked athlete, and we know his name, Philinus, as victor at the games. He's standing to the left and looking back with a reed in his raised hand and a palm under his left arm. And at left, a figure of uncertain identity. We don't know who that person might be, and maybe a judge. On the right is a musician blowing a pipe, most likely, or a double flute, most likely. And here is another coin that promotes the Isthmian games. Coin is from Corinth, in Corinthia. So COR tells us that this is a coin of Corinth, but it promotes the Isthmian games held in that city. And we have, other than sports persons, we have horses that are depicted in garlands or wreaths. So here we have the forepart of a horse. It's a galloping horse. As you see, the front hooves are running. But at the same time, we understand that this is a race horse, but it's not a war horse. Were there other games held in these festivals? Certainly. Here, a marble relief showing some athletes playing field hockey. It's obvious that it's a hockey with their hockey sticks, and these games were popular in many different places, not only in ancient Greece, but in different parts in Rome and in Egypt. They were well known. And then there were other bowl games. Here are two examples from different parts, one from Greece, one from Rome. So bowl games played with feet, and bowl games played with hands. Now, do we have examples of these games on coins? This is also an interesting mosaic from Piazza Armerina in Sicily, showing the bikini girls playing, engaging in sportive activities, including a kind of a ball game. And no surprise to find ball games represented on ancient coins. There is a particular city called Larissa in Thessaly in central Greece that decided to use these ball activities represented on its coinage. The nymph, Larissa, standing left and holding a ball in her hand. If this is not enough, we have the nymph bouncing the ball while advancing to the left, and now to the right, doing the same activity. And here is another one from a different time period, maybe a later coin, but again, the nymph is shown playing with a ball. And another series from the same city, from the same time period. This time, the nymph is seated on a hydra and tossing ball in her hand. And here is another one. Now, this is the most enigmatic one. Some numismatists wanted to identify the object the nymph holds in her right hand, a mirror. And it is possible that it is a mirror, but I would like to think that it's a racket rather than a mirror. Seeing the ball in her hand, she's getting ready to throw the ball and hit the ball with the racket in her right hand. An incredible scene of a certain historical and religious event activity at that time. There is not much to read about sport activities in the form of books. I found these two references online, and this one is available in the link that I gave you here. They're interesting to read. This is a book, Simple Souvenir Coins and Medals of the Olympic Games. To tell you the truth, I didn't read this one, but I quickly read the one available online. It's interesting if you would like to learn more about ancient sports activities. You're most welcome to look at them. But in general, we have many other coins that tell us about sports activities and sports persons and their significance in ancient times. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.